Hello and welcome back to another English lesson. Today I am a little pressed for time, which is another way to say I don't have a lot of extra time. So I am recording this English lesson in my classroom. I have locked the door. Students are in the building, but hopefully we won't get interrupted. If we do, I will just pause the lesson. You will have no idea that I was interrupted. Thank you so much for clicking on this English lesson. I know there are a lot of English teachers on YouTube. They are way better looking than me. Today, the lighting is not great, but you didn't click on this English lesson to look at my face. You clicked on it to learn English. And that is what we are going to do today. Today, we will watch a news clip about a young woman who is Canadian, but she was driving in the United States with her Canadian driver's license, and she was put in jail just for being Canadian. By the end of this English lesson, you will learn the term horrendous. You will learn what an Odyssey is in English. You will learn the important term expired. You will learn what forgery is. You will learn a great word, flabbergasted. You will learn what supplemental is. You will learn the verb frisk. I hope you are never frisked. Actually, I have been frisked a couple times at the airport and before I went to a concert. Hopefully, you never get frisked by the police. You will learn what a mug shot is. I hope you never have to pose for a mug shot. You will learn what the English phrasal verb locked up means, and so much more. Let's take a look at that news clip, and then I will come back and teach all of the difficult terms. We have almost 30 in this English lesson.
One young Ontario woman who was taking that highway ended up in the back of a cruiser because she was Canadian.
They're taking away my car, and now I can't drive, and I don't know what to do. I'm in Georgia.
Pretty upset, understandably. That's Emily Neal, who calls her arrest last month the most horrendous incident of her life. And she's looking for an apology from the officer who charged her. Well, this is a story that certainly caught our attention. Emily Neal out of the cruiser, back in Canada with family in Kleinburg, and with me this morning so we can tell you more about her story. Good to see you, Emily, and thank you for being here.
Good morning, Heather.
So let's go through what you went through. There you are back in Kleinburg, thankfully, but as I was mentioned there, your story is you were in Georgia, driving through Georgia, you got pulled over for speeding, and this is when the Odyssey began.
For each of the terms, I will have a picture, I will have the official definition, and I will use that word in a sentence. In the newscast, they talk about a cruiser. I wanted to make sure you knew what a cruiser was. It's just another name for a police car. The police officer drove a cruiser when he stopped her car. That is just an example sentence. The officer was actually a woman who stopped that Canadian young girl. Ugh, horrendous. I hope you are not scared of clowns because that picture might scare you a little bit. But horrendous means very bad or scary. She said her time in jail was horrendous. An Odyssey. Now, this was originally a book from a long time ago. It's a very famous book. You may know it by a different name, but the Odyssey is by Homer. He also wrote the Iliad. But in English, we also use that term meaning like this: a long and difficult trip. Her road trip became an Odyssey after she was arrested.
What happened when you handed over your valid Ontario license to that police officer?
She saw my license, and then she took a moment, looked down upon it, and she said, "This is not valid." And I was like, "No, my license has not been expired or anything like that." She's like, "No, this is a Canadian driver's license. I can't accept this.
All of her legal documents, like her driver's license and her passport, were valid. They were not expired. We will talk about expired in just a minute, but they were all valid. In other words, they were still good to use. Her Canadian license was valid, but the officer didn't believe her. I have driven in Canada with my American license many times. I've had no problems. It makes me very sad to hear that a Canadians are supposed to be friends of the Americans, right? It's very sad that she was stopped. She's young. She reminded me a little bit of my daughter. That must have been such a scary time for her. Expired. We use expired in a couple different ways, but in the news report, they used it like this: no longer good to use. In the picture, I have an expired credit card. You can see the date there is February, maybe 23rd. I am recording this in April of 2025. So that credit card is definitely expired. She was arrested even though her license was valid, not expired. We also use expired for food you can't eat because it's old. And sadly, we also use it like for another way to say a person has died. We might say, oh, he expired last night at 11 p.m.
And then she took a moment, looked down upon it, and she said, this is not valid. And I was like, no, my license has not been expired or anything like that. She's like, no, this is a Canadian driver's license. I can't accept this. How do I know if you are actually Canadian or if this is a forgery? Canadian licenses aren't accepted in the state of Georgia. And I was just flabbergasted when she told me that.
How do we know it's not a fraud? Because she did ask you for supplemental ID too, didn't she?
A forgery. What is that? Simply put, it is a fake document. The officer thought her license was a forgery. Maybe my favorite word of the lesson: flabbergasted. Flabbergasted. That means very surprised or shocked. She was flabbergasted when the officer arrested her. Fraud. It's very much like forgery, but fraud is a lie used to trick someone for money or power. She was accused of fraud, but she did nothing wrong. Supplemental. That is a good adjective to know. It means extra or more. If you book a tutoring session with me, you will receive supplemental material after. So, I am offering private tutoring sessions. I will leave a link for that in the description. But after we have our conversation, I'll give you something extra. I will give you a recording of our conversation so you can watch it over and over again to practice your English listening skills. Here's another way we might use supplemental. She took a job at night for supplemental income. It's just another extra way to make money.
She promptly told me that I was now under arrest. I could not drive in the state of Georgia and that my car had to be impounded. So she put handcuffs on me, frisked me, and put me in the back of her police car. And we waited until a tow truck driver can come and take my car away.
Impounded. The definition is taken by the police or government. And I usually hear this term used just for cars. I suppose other things could be impounded, like maybe a boat, but I think it's mostly vehicles that are impounded. Her car was impounded and taken away by a tow truck. If you don't know tow truck, don't worry, you will. I thought somebody was at my door. I keep looking out the window to make sure nobody needs me. So far, I don't think anybody is at the door. Let's check here. I don't think so. I think it's still locked. Yeah. Okay, we're back. Nobody was at the door. And the reason I am filming this English lesson in my classroom today is because in just a few days, I will be flying to Mexico. I will be visiting my second wonder of the world. In English, we say that there are 7 wonders of the world. Last year, I was in Brazil for Christ the Redeemer. This year, I will be doing Mexico and Chichen Itza. I hope to be the only English teacher in the world to film an English lesson at all of the 7 wonders. But to frisk someone means to search someone's body for hidden items. And in the picture, that police officer is frisking that person. Here is an example sentence. A police officer frisked her before putting her in jail. Try saying that sentence a couple times. It is not easy. A police officer frisked her before putting her in jail. Remember, we talked about tow truck earlier. Here is the definition. A truck that takes broken or taken cars. Like she had her car impounded. The police took it. To get her car from the side of the road to the parking lot or the impound lot, they needed a tow truck. A tow truck came to take her car. I hope I am not speaking too quickly during this English lesson. If I am, you can always slow me down if you are watching on, I think, a phone, a computer. I'm not sure about a TV. Please let me know in the comments, how are you watching this English lesson? On your phone, on a computer, or on your TV?
Yes, I did have more forms of ID. I had my OHIP card on me, but my passport, I don't keep it on me when I'm traveling. I like to keep it back in the hotel or back at the home that I'm staying at. And she kept insisting on seeing my passport, which I didn't have on me. I had a copy of it along with a copy of my birth certificate and Nexus card all on my phone, but she did not want to see any of those.
Isn't that interesting? Because that's what they often advise you, to keep the originals safe in case of loss or theft or something, and keep copies, and she wouldn't accept those. So then what happened?
She promptly told me that I was now under arrest. I could not drive in the state of Georgia and that my car had to be impounded. So she put handcuffs on me, frisked me, and put me in the back of her police car. And we waited until a tow truck driver can come and take my car away.
And then she took you where?
She took me straight to jail.
To jail?
Yes, to jail, in which I was processed, booked, fingerprinted, mugshot, had to wear orange, the whole shebang, and I was in jail and forced to pay a bail to get out.
A mugshot. And I do have the mugshot of President Trump, one of the most famous mugshots in the world. But the definition for a mugshot is a photo taken after someone is arrested. She had to take a mugshot like a criminal. So I didn't know how to put a picture up for the whole shebang. I'm not sure if you need a picture, but I do have an extra example for you. It just means everything that happened. She had to go through the whole shebang: arrest, jail, and court. How about using the whole shebang when it comes to English learning? When I study English, I do the whole shebang: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Bail, that means money to get out of jail. She paid bail. Sometimes you will hear the verb posted. So she paid or posted bail to get out of jail.
Mugshot, had to wear orange, the whole shebang, and I was in jail and forced to pay a bail to get out.
How long were you there?
They told me I was going to stay there until June 12th unless I paid the bail, but as soon as I was paid the bail, I was released after approximately 3 to 4 hours.
This happened, though, the beginning of April. So they were telling you April, May, mid-June? Had you not paid that amount?
April 2nd. which
Okay,
was my birthday.
Oh my goodness. Not such a happy birthday. So there you
No.
are. You're all by yourself. You're a young woman in jail in Georgia. I mean, what are you thinking? What are you feeling?
I was terrified. I'd never been in that sort of situation. I kept hearing all these noises from other people who were locked up, and I was just kept thinking, oh my gosh, is something going to happen to me? Am I going to get hurt?
Do you know this English phrasal verb, locked up? It just means to be put in jail. She was locked up for something she didn't do.
No one knew where I was. If it wasn't for the Snapchat feature, Find My Friend, no one would have known that I was in jail.
Yeah, so explain that, because we had that video. That video that we'll show again. You were able to grab some of that when you were in the cruiser, and you sent that back to people at home?
Yes. I had my cell phone on me. I was not hiding it. The police officer let me keep it. And my cell phone was kind of old, so the GPS location was not working, so I couldn't find myself. But I was able to send a Snapchat to friends to be like, hey, I don't know where I am. Help me, get me out of jail. And through that app, they knew exactly where my phone was located. They were able to find me and start connecting me with a lawyer and trying to get me out.
All right, I don't know too much about this one, Snapchat. I do not have a Snapchat. I think I might be a little too old for Snapchat, but this app might have saved her a lot of trouble because her friends knew she was in jail because of the GPS on her phone. Do you know GPS in English? It just like shows where you are at somewhere in the world. So her friends knew she was in jail because of Snapchat. Snapchat is a phone app to send photos and videos. We saw that she sent a video via Snapchat or with Snapchat when she was in the cruiser. But she said the police officer said that she was able to have her phone. She used Snapchat to tell her friends what happened.
So it's interesting. We were looking at the Georgia Department of Driver Services website. I mean, it's really clear. Emily, this is what it says. Non-U.S. citizens holding a valid foreign driver's license are allowed to drive in the state of Georgia. I mean, was this officer just mistaken? Or what happened? How is it that you're talking to me now? How was it able to be resolved?
I would like to think that she was mistaken. I hate to think that people were actually targeting Canadians. But in the back of my mind, and from stories that I've now been hearing from so many people, I think this particular stretch of highway, they are targeting Canadians because they know they're not going to come back to protest any of the fees. So they can easily make some money off of a quick speed trap. And then when they saw that I had an invalid license, they thought maybe they could make more money because the money goes directly back to that county sheriff's office.
What happens if something gets resolved? It means finished or fixed. Her case was resolved when the court dropped the charges. And I think they are even giving her money back, right? Maybe she should sue the state of Georgia. I use this term all the time. In the back of my mind, it means a quiet thought or worry. So it's not at the front of your mind. That means you're thinking about it a lot. If something is in the back of your mind, you think about it every so often, but it's not a big problem or not a big concern yet. In the back of her mind, she worried about driving in a new country. Do you know what a speed trap is in English? It is a place where police wait to catch drivers going too fast or speeding. If you are going too fast in a car, we also say that you are speeding. She may have been caught in a speed trap.
How much did you end up paying?
The bond was set for $880 USD, but with fees and everything like that, it came to $927 USD, and then it cost me another $200 USD to get my car out of the impound lot.
Wow. So here you are, you're in the hole, you've had this experience, and is everything done now, or are there still matters yet unresolved for you?
Thanks to so many countless people in the United States and the Canadian consulate, this matter is almost completely resolved. My record has almost been expunged, which is great, and they are mailing me a check with my bond money back.
Well, that is good news, and it'll be all hopefully in the distant past. And yet, it's such a vivid account. And the I-75, how many untold millions of Canadians take that highway heading down to Florida or wherever?
We have a couple different ways we use the idiom in the hole. This first way is how they used it in the newscast. In a small jail cell alone. She was scared they would put her in the hole. It's just another way to say she was in jail. But in the hole could also mean owing money. After the tow and bail, she was in the hole with money. We might say she was in the hole for almost $1,000. In other words, she owed the state of Georgia $1,000. Consulate. It is a good word to know if you are going to be traveling to another country. It is an office from your country in another country. She called the Canadian consulate for help. That is just an example sentence. Remember, they did not allow her to call anyone.
So here you are, you're in the hole, you've had this experience, and is everything done now, or are there still matters yet unresolved for you?
Thanks to so many countless people in the United States and the Canadian consulate, this matter is almost completely resolved. My record has almost been expunged, which is great, and they are mailing me a check with my bond money back.
Well, that is good news, and it'll be all hopefully in the distant past. And yet, it's such a vivid account. And the I-75, how many untold millions of Canadians take that highway heading down to Florida or wherever? What's the lesson of your story, do you think, for fellow Canadians, Emily?
I would say always be aware of the law. You do have the right to have a Canadian license, and you have the right to call the Canadian consulate. I was denied that right, but that goes against the Vienna Treaty. That does not count as your one phone call. They have to call them, and the Canadian consulate can easily clear things up for you.
Quite a
and
price.
Always make sure.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Always make sure.
You have the hard copies of your documents as well. Against the phone, having them saved, it won't cut it anymore.
Luckily, this whole ordeal will be expunged from her record. Just means erased from the record. Her arrest was expunged after the mistake was fixed. They talk about I-75 or Interstate 75. It is a major highway in the U.S. that runs through Detroit and Florida. Detroit and Toronto, which I think is Canada's biggest city, are right next to each other. So I imagine a lot of Canadians who are driving to Florida for vacation will take I-75. Here's an example sentence. She was driving on I-75 when she got stopped. I didn't know about the Vienna Treaty. When you hear treaty in English, I usually think of an agreement after a war has stopped. Like two countries will come together after a war, deciding who gets money, who gets land, all of that kind of stuff. But the Vienna Treaty, I guess, is a world rule that helps people in other countries, and it was written in 1969. The Vienna Treaty says she should be able to call her country for help. Hard copies. So she didn't have hard copies of her passport and a couple other documents, she said, but hard copies are paper copies, not digital copies. She had a picture of her passport on her phone. We might call that a digital copy. The officer wanted hard copies, not phone pictures. It won't cut it. It's a good idiom to know in English. It simply means not good enough. The officer said her digital license won't cut it. If you want to improve your English, studying for 10 minutes a day probably won't cut it. Congratulations, you made it to the end of another English lesson. Don't forget, if you would like to schedule a private tutoring session with me, there are links in the description. If you're looking for more English, right down there is a whole playlist of English lessons I made with a Canadian English teacher, Bob the Canadian. Have you ever heard of that guy? Check him out. He is a great English teacher. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.